Welcome to Module 1. What is a health and safety policy? Well, to be fit for purpose, we really should know what a health and safety policy is, how to prepare a health and safety policy, how the policy fits into a health and safety management system, and how to communicate the policy. It's also very important to understand when that policy should be reviewed. So what exactly is a health and safety policy? Well, if we look on the HSE website, it will tell us how to prepare a health and safety policy and how that fits into our organisation. When we look a little bit closer, which we will do in a minute, it'll give us an overview, and that is the law. So it reminds us that the law says that every business must have a policy. Now, whilst that's every business, it's important to also know that if you have 5 or more employees, then that's got to be written down. So if we don't have 5 or more, then we don't have to write it down, but we do have to have a policy. So that's really important. And that actually tells us that we can have a policy, or we have a policy, even if it's not written down. So let's think about that. So that means that policy can be felt. It's not even there. It's not in existence. But everything you are doing for health and safety is actually your policy. And organisations must share and provide any information on any changes to that policy. Really important to understand this. A health and safety policy sets out the general approach. It's going to explain how we, or you as an employer, manage health and safety. And this is the important part. It should clearly say who does what, when and how. So when people copy a policy from someone else, it's quite obvious that it's not the policy of the organisation. So let's just take a quick look on the HSE website. So here is that area on the HSE website, fantastic website, prepare the health and safety policy. And it talks us through how to do that. And we will be going through the 3 areas, but it's a fantastic resource. So if you haven't used it, jump onto that website. Okay, so the law. It is the law, right? So the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. And this is where it tells us that we must have a health and safety policy, except in such cases as may be prescribed, and that's actually the management regs, the arrangements, we have to prepare and revise a written statement of the general policy with respect to the health and safety of work. And the organisation, that's basically the arrangement section, the organisation, that is the responsibility section, and arrangements for bringing that into force and let the employees know about it. So it is law. Now, if we then look at where section 323 goes into, that is then explained a little bit more in the health and safety at work regulations, the management of health and safety regulations. And it's saying where the employer applies 5 or more, then we've got to record that. So it's really important. And the management regs are a really important set of regulations. Let me jump into the management regs there. That's really important. Management regs. Management regulations. Really important set of regulations to have a good understanding of. It goes everything through risk assessment, principle of prevention, all the way down health and safety assistance, capabilities, right down to young workers and pregnancy in the workplace. So an excellent set of regulations there. Continuing, what is that policy? Well, realistically, it's a bit of a roadmap, isn't it? It's a map, it's a manual, it's going to guide us it's going to guide everybody in the organisation on what we actually do for health and safety. And it's important to know and keep this in mind that the policy is implemented through the management system. So the policy doesn't just sit on the wall, it doesn't sit on the internet, it is actually implemented by how we manage health and safety, the health and safety management system. Now, a management system itself is best described in an occupational health and safety manual. That means we can articulate it to the people in our organisation, we can review it, we can update it, we can make it available. And I will cover an occupational health and safety management system manual in the next few slides. So where does that policy fit into the management system, an occupational health and safety management system? Well, some organisations may have 45001, they may be certified to it, or they may just be aligning what they do to this occupational health and safety management system, ISO 45001. We've got HSG 65 as well. We will be going a little bit more in depth into these later on, HSG 65, and we can see that model, plan, do, check, act. But ultimately, when that policy is implemented through the system, it's going to show that we've got that system is going to have many, many outputs. So you can see in my management system that I've got shared with the client, you can see section 1, the policy document. So what people often think of is just that policy statement of intent. Well, that policy document is within this area, but as we can see, there are procedures, there are risk assessments, there are meetings, there are inspections, there are plenty other elements within there that make up that occupational health and safety management system, and the policy document is just one. Remember, you implement the policy through the management system. And that's that occupational health and safety manual there. So if we just have a look what a manual could look like. So here's an occupational health and safety manual. I've set this manual out to assist companies who have ISO 45001. And as you can see, if I just show you the contents page, the 3 requirements of an occupational and health and safety policy: the statement, the responsibility of the organisation, and then the arrangements, 1, 2, 3. But what I've done then, from 4 onwards, I've actually aligned that then to the clauses, the harmonised structure of ISO. So then we go into context, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation and improvement. Then with all the policies and the procedures at the end. By doing it this way, it's a really good way of articulating internally, documenting, reviewing. We can get that message across because we've actually recorded. Again, using parts 1, 2 and 3 that's required for the policy, and then moving on to clauses 4 up to 10 for the management system. It really is a good way of doing it. So where does it fit into a health and safety management system? As we've just said, it could be in a formal management system that's certified. It could be in an informal management system, HSG 65 from the HSE, or it could be, articulated, described, recorded inside a manual. It really is important to remember that to implement the policy, a company needs to establish that effective management system. That's how we do things, okay? And as I've shown, it could exist within the manual, and the policy is not just that policy statement of intent. Back to preparing. Well, we need a strategy and we need to make plans. That's exactly what we need to do to get this into the organisation. The policy has to satisfy legal requirements. We know there could be manual handling, there could be work equipment, there could be transportation, there could be working at height. So we must make sure that policy is designed to meet legal requirements. Often organisations will have a legal register. And that policy is there. It's designed to prevent occupational health and safety problems. And this wordage is actually from the HSE website, keeping it really simple. Look, meet legal requirements, prevent problems, and also enable an immediate emergency response. Because when everything goes wrong, when the wheels have come off, we then finish with documentation. We start with activity, either to save somebody's life or to prevent a more serious incident. That's really, really important. In simple terms, think about how we're going to manage health and safety in the company. If I was thinking about that for PCR Global, I would be thinking about people, equipment, materials, the environment, where we operate. That's exactly what I'll be thinking about. Then I'll be going through deciding who's going to do what, when they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it. And that basically, when you think about it, that is the occupational health and safety policy, how we will manage health and safety, who is going to do what, when and how. Often that's missing from organisations. They will have their policy, they don't connect the policy actually with the activities. And it's the activities that is the important part. And it's giving roles, responsibilities, authorities and accountabilities to people. Give them to people, plan them, check them, go back, discuss it with them. It is what we do, when we do it, how we're doing it. So that makes it important who is doing it. Continuing. So the HSE, they talk about how we write a policy, and they say about the three parts: the statement of intent, saying what we're going to do, putting that on that statement, then the responsibilities, listing the names, then the arrangements, finally that final section. So let's just quickly go into that example statement from the HSE policy statement. So first and foremost, you can see statement of intent. Then we've got responsibilities. I'm not going to go too deep into this because that is in the next section, module I should say. And then we have arrangements. Who's going to be responsible for risk assessment, training, consultation. So quite simple really when you look at it like that. So in this overview of a policy, is that policy going to be left to gather dust, or should the policy be communicated? It's certainly got to be communicated, and we can do that through notice boards, bringing it to the attention of the organisation, through a manual, like I said earlier on. I think that's probably one of the best ways of doing it. And a lot of people do it through induction, and they do it online, and they keep it potentially on the intranet. But what we must remember, as with anything in the workplace, the method of delivery and the attitude of anybody who's delivering any type of message in the workplace, that really impacts the success. So if we've got a managing director or a senior manager in a department, if they're very difficult to get on with, if they don't show any leadership characteristics, if they aren't approachable, if they don't listen, if they cause friction, if they have favourites, and the list goes on and on and on, then ultimately we are doomed to fail before we've even started. We've got to communicate it, and it's got to be communicated by the right people. Really important message. Often we will see people communicating it through an induction. So here we can see a company induction, we can highlight the policies, and we can see health and safety policy. So we can see that. What does that look like a little bit closer up? Health and safety policy, and we're going to have explained by and potentially a date. And then hopefully that's going to be signed off. A positive induction. David asked questions on the areas he was not familiar with. I am comfortable. David understands what has been explained. So I think this is a really good way at the induction, because people need to understand the organisation. And it's really important the right person delivers that induction and plenty of time is spent on it. Quite often, other organisations are going to ask, for evidence that you have communicated that policy. And as a consultant, this is what we're looking at when we're doing our observation, document review, and interview, which we will cover in another module. This is where we can see some evidence of implementation. Some good practice. We should involve employees in developing the policy. They are the people on the ground doing the work. They will understand the safe systems or not. They will understand the equipment or not. We have to ensure they are trained, they are capable of doing what they are doing, but we get that feedback from them so we can change the policy and improve the policy. Remember, the policy is not a document. The policy is how we actually do things on the ground. Have the policy signed by a director. That's a really good thing to do. It's not a legal requirement. However, things like ISO and certain safety schemes and procurement organisations, they will want to see that policy signed. 100% get it signed. It does show that commitment. I would also guide to appoint a senior member as the occupational health and safety champion. So then we've given it some ownership. We're giving that position ownership, and it's a good idea to rotate every couple of years as well. So give a number of people the baton to carry for a couple of years. And as I've just said, third parties often want written evidence of acknowledgement by employees. So it is a good thing to do is to get them to sign for the policy. Say sign for it, sign that they've got access to it, show them it, talk them through it, say why it's there. So that is some good practice. So again, do we just leave it there or do we have to review it? Well, we can see the HSE's policy statement of intent, we can see my policy statement of intent, and we can see down the bottom here that the HSE guide us to sign it. Obviously, so would I, as just explained. When? How often? Well, annually is a good thing, but also I would review it if there's any change in the workplace. That's really, really important. So, moving across, example, how did the HSE guide us to implement it? Well, John presented the policy statement at a staff meeting and decided to review and update the policy every year or during a significant change, as we've just said. So when do we review it? Say annually, but when there's a significant change as well. Really, really important. Out of interest, because we're nearly at the end of this first introductory module. Is it a legal requirement to display the health and safety law poster? Quite often I see managers or consultants having this down as stop, that's a requirement to have it displayed. But if we lean back into the HSE website, we can see display the health and safety law poster. If you employ anyone, you must either display the poster or provide each worker with equivalent health and safety law leaflet. So we can actually go in a little bit further and we can look at law posters or leaflets, health and safety law, and we can get it in various languages as well. And when we have a look at that, we can download it. Let's have a quick look. Pocket card as well, easy read leaflet, and that we can download, bear with me, and that's actually going to give us all the requirements that we need with really good explanations as well. So I think it's worth knowing. We haven't got to display that poster. Although it's a good thing, of course, but we shouldn't tell people they have to if they actually haven't got to. And there you go. Okay, we're nearing the end of this first section, so some questions and answers. Is it true or is it false? Every company in the UK must have an occupational health and safety policy. Is that true or false? Every company. It is true, but if you have 5 or more employees, it's got to be written down. So like we say, the policy itself is a document, but it's what we do that makes the policy. And we implement the policy through a management system, and we can record the policy in a manual that helps everybody understand it. How many parts are there? You remember how many parts? 1, 2, 3. Statement of intent, responsibilities, and the arrangements section. Does the HSE provide a policy template on their website? Yes, they do. They do provide a work example and a downloadable template. It's worthy of looking at. It gives you an understanding of what they want. But we can't forget certain third parties, whether it's ISO, safety schemes in procurement, and potentially clients, they may want more specific information, especially around the arrangements, i.e. sort of procedures, how you do things. We will look at that in a later module. Continuing. True or false? The policy would be, the occupational health and safety policy would be part of an occupational health and safety management system that could be informal or formal. That is true. And that occupational health and safety management system may be HSG 65 or 45001. 45001 is certifiable by ISO. HSG 65 is the guidance given by the HSE. True or false? The legal requirement to write a policy is included in the Health and Safety at Work Act. The management of health and safety at work regulations explain the steps you must take to manage health and safety. That is true. We looked at that, didn't we? Nearly there. True or false? The Health and Safety at Work Act states that the policy must be communicated to employees and they must sign as acknowledgement. Do they have to sign as acknowledgement? No, they don't. Communicating the policy is the legal requirement, making sure people understand it, but ultimately there is no requirement to sign it, but third parties may want that. The Health and Safety at Work Act states that the occupational health and safety policy must be reviewed annually. Yes. Yes. No. Wrong. I apologise. False. It's got to be reviewed, as we know, but it doesn't state when. So it's worthwhile doing it annually, but we're going to review that policy when there's a significant change in the workplace. Now we're on to a formal knowledge check. Now we're coming to the end of the module, and you now should have that basic knowledge of what a policy is, the legal requirements surrounding a policy, how many parts, 1, 2, 3, and where it fits into an occupational health and safety management system. Remembering that could be HSG 65, it could be ISO 45001, it might not be. There might not be an informal or formal one. It just may be that the organisation has the policy and they're just continuing. They will have a management system. It might not be discussed like that, but they will have a sequence of doing things. It just may not follow any formal or informal standard that's out there. So that's it. Thanks for covering the first module with me. That's an introductory module. And now you're going to go on to your assessment. So good luck with your assessment.